I've spent a lot of time exposing and explaining how the media, the 1930s and 40s, covered up the Holocaust. 3 scholars, one of whom works for Joe Biden these days, wrote extensive books specifically about how the New York Times betrayed the Jews. It's the title of one of them. It took a long time, but in 2001, Max Frankel, the retired, I believe, managing editor of the New York Times, wrote a piece apologizing for their grave error. And during my 21 years on radio, I pointed out time and time and time again how the media in America reports lies about the state of Israel. And you can see today how they're quick to embrace Hamas talking points. Whether it's the hospital, whether it's casualties, whatever it is. One of the worst violators of the truth, one of the worst propagandist operations in America is CNN. And shame on the media that uses Media Matters as a source for news. Media Matters that has been supported by George Soros, who's a notorious opponent of the state of Israel, notorious, whose nonprofit organizations have links to front groups that have links to terrorist organizations. There was a piece, I believe, in the New York Post about that recently. But don't you dare mention that. Because George Soros was in the Holocaust. And don't you dare mention anything about George Soros. But we just witnessed and are witnessing the worst atrocity since the Holocaust against Jews in Israel. It's not my fault that he's funding these front groups. But CNN is one of the worst. Wolf Blitzer is one of the worst. Jake Tapper is one of the worst, but they're not alone. There's a whole conga line. Same with MSNBC, which is the worst of the worst. Now, I want you to listen to this. All 3 minutes of it. Because I have to waste my time on this. Because I will not allow me or anybody that supports the state of Israel and the survival of the Jewish people to be intimidated by a corrupt, poisonous, propagandist operation like CNN. This is from yesterday, I believe. Go. I want you to listen to Wolf Blitzer, to Hakeem Jeffries on CNN yesterday. Wolf Blitzer, as I understand it, his parents weren't victims in one way or another of the Holocaust, but certainly his family comes out of that background. But you wouldn't know it. Because the ideology of the left is very attractive. It's very compelling. Particularly if you're in media. Wolf Blitzer, cut 2 with Hakeem Jeffries. Go.
A senior Hamas official that it claims was the leader in the October 7th terrorist attack.
Stop. A senior Hamas official that it claims, meaning Israel claims, was a leader in October 7th attack. You've seen his picture? You know his background? You know his connections? What do you mean that Israel, or it, claims? What do you mean it claims? Was Himmler part of the senior level of Nazis, or is that just a claim? But here we go. Go ahead.
We don't yet know how many civilians were killed in today's strike on that refugee camp, but is taking out one Hamas... It wasn't a
strike on a refugee camp. If they wanted to strike the refugee camp, you'd see more than one location where the missile hit. It wasn't a strike on refugees. One of the top commanders of what happened on October 7th, one of the leading subhuman Nazis, was there in the refugee camp. So you can't beg him to leave. Please leave so we can kill you. You got to go get him. And Israel has explained again and again and again and again that even an old man like Wolf Blitzer who has a hearing problem and an IQ problem should be able to comprehend this. That there are underground tunnels. Wow, there are? Yes, there are. Like spaghetti. Under Gaza. And so when you drop a bomb or shoot a missile and hit a location, often they cave in. Not always, but they cave in. Why? Because the infrastructure doesn't exist any longer. That is the ground. They're tunnels. Tunnels mean there's space. There's space underground. So if something dramatic happens at the surface, it can blow through the surface into the ground. And Wolf Blitzer's been on TV a long time, and he knows that. But he doesn't care. All right, that was about 3 minutes. That was about all the context. And you would think Wolf Blitzer would have more compassion about this, the greatest atrocities committed against the Jews since the Holocaust, and the Jews fighting back, trying to take out one of the commanders, one of the top Hamas Nazis. And even Hakeem Jeffries didn't bite the hook. They have a right to defend themselves. He didn't even bite the hook. Blitzer, in his question, is soliciting condemnation of Israel and Israeli forces. That's what he was doing. I'm defending Israel, the Jewish state. I'm defending Israel. One of the senior commanders responsible for the atrocities that took place. Babies put in ovens. Babies decapitated. Women raped. You don't need to hear it all. You know it all. You've seen it all. And so they have a commander in their sights. They weren't attacking a refugee camp. They didn't say, oh, there's a refugee camp. Let's attack it. But you listening to this, you wouldn't know it. I want you to listen to this part again. Because what happens is Media Matters is recording this program. Hanging on every syllable. And what they do is they'll take a word, a sentence, they'll turn it into a pretzel, because they will try and create a narrative. And their fellow slime balls will pick up on it. Like Mediaite, like the Daily Beast. These are all reprobates. These are all non-entities. But they're desperately trying to get their pretzel, their twist, their spin into the mainstream media. Let me explain what I mean. Mr. Producer, stop at the top and stop when I tell you to stop. Go. I want you to listen to Wolf Blitzer, to Hakeem Jeffries on CNN yesterday. Wolf Blitzer, as I understand it, his parents weren't victims in one way or another of the Holocaust, but certainly his family comes out of that background. Stop. Media Matters says the Daily Beast and Mediaite regurgitate that comment suggests anti-Semitism. Start at the top again, Mr. Producer. Go. I want you to listen to Wolf Blitzer, to Hakeem Jeffries on CNN yesterday. Wolf Blitzer, as I understand it, his parents weren't victims in one way or another of the Holocaust, but certainly his family comes out of that background. But you wouldn't know it. So what does that mean? Let's start at the beginning. his parents, they say, weren't victims in one way or another. Let's stop for a second. When I take a breath when I'm saying something and I'm passionate, I take a breath. Now, you can hear that to say weren't if you're really listening and you want it to say weren't or so forth, or you can hear it to say weren't. I barely even remember saying it. So we've played it. We've upped the audio. You can twist it to say weren't. But obviously, why would I say his parents weren't in one way or another victims in the Holocaust? How can that even be logical? Why would I say somebody's parents were or were not victims of the Holocaust? If they weren't victims of the Holocaust, why would I say his parents weren't victims of the Holocaust? Or why would I intentionally say that? I didn't. I didn't. In the second sentence, but certainly his family comes out of that background, clarifies exactly what I'm talking about. So they take that and they say, Levin denies that Wolf Blitzer's parents were in the Holocaust, which I've since looked up, and they were at Auschwitz. And his grandparents were killed there. Which is a horrible, horrible thing. In fact, some of the people who've been taken back into Gaza were Holocaust survivors in Israel. Some of the people murdered were Holocaust survivors. And of course, my point is, you have a background like that? And you ask Hakeem Jeffries a question like this? It's shocking to me, especially as a Jew. It is shocking to me. And so that now, ladies and gentlemen, causes CNN, which was contacted by, I think, the Daily Beast, another leftist Marxist operation. And here's what CNN said. Quote, and by the way, it's anonymous. We don't even know who at CNN said it. Mark Levin's comments about Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper were wildly uninformed, inappropriate, and shameful, the spokesperson told the Daily Beast. Wolf is the child of Holocaust survivors, and all four of his grandparents were murdered during the Holocaust, a fact that Wolf has personally reported on through a special documentary, Trips to Auschwitz, written reflections, and decades of public speaking on the Holocaust, education, and awareness. Levin's anti-Semitic rhetoric is dangerous, offensive, and should be universally denounced. My anti-Semitic rhetoric? This is why I despise these people, and you should too. They think they're going to intimidate me? They think they're going to silence me? In that entire clip, Mr. Producer, who's defending Israel? Me. In that entire clip, who's defending the IDF taking out the Islamo-Nazi commander? Is it Wolf Blitzer? No, he's questioning it. It's me. I am. Even Hakeem Jeffries wasn't buying it. And that's the point. And there are self-hating Jews, as there are self-hating Catholics and Protestants and Americans and so forth. Books have been written about the Sulzberger family in the New York Times. They're embarrassed by their faith. Embarrassed. And one of the arguments is that's why they covered up the Holocaust. But I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here, Wolf Blitzer, Jake Tapper, Ernie Grabatsky, I don't care. While the state of Israel is fighting for its survival, and you get a dumbass question like this, which is intended to provoke criticism. Criticism, fine. But for taking out a commander of Hamas, no way. The anti-Semites are at Media Matters. They're connected to Soros. The anti-Semites are at CNN, one of the most pro-Hamas media outlets in the country. And the anti-Semites are at Mediaite, that spends more time attacking Trump than it does Hamas. That's it.